131 monsters, while in second place stood a player named Stupid Idiots, a level 13 shaman who had claimed 982 lives. Securing third was the Heavenly Demon, a level 13 knight with a tally of 963. As for our protagonist's own region, the results were even more staggering. He had taken the top spot, followed by Songchul, a warrior, with 680 kills, and Arin, a summoner, in third with 500. A wave of disbelief washed over everyone. The Black Reaper had single-handedly vanquished nearly 4,000 creatures, 4,000 monsters, an almost mythical feat. He had already ascended to level 30, a pace so unheard of it bordered on the impossible. In the quiet of his mind, our hero reflected on his progress. He admits this explosive growth was fueled by experience bonuses, a coveted privilege granted only to the one who conquers every region. It was a victory not easily won. The system's voice echoed, congratulating him for achieving the paramount rank across all regions and also within his own. As a testament to his dominance, he would receive a reward selection chest and a rare ring ticket for his efforts. He decided to inspect the rings first, and the system presented him with a choice: the Agile Winds ring, the Blue Magic ring, or the Resistance ring. Without a moment's hesitation, his decision was made. He chose the Resistance ring. He knew that while its name sounded modest, its power was anything but. It was a unique item that boosted luck by 4% and resistance by a massive 35%. Ryuman understood a crucial truth of this world. No matter how powerful a player becomes, a single debilitating debuff could spell their end. And since resistance wasn't a stat that could be enhanced through attributes, an item like this was beyond valuable. Even if it had no immediate use, it was a critical asset to hold for the future. With that settled, he turned his attention to the next reward. Here, he faced three distinct options: a 50% increase in all attributes for the duration of the fourth round, a prize of 4,000 gold, or vital information about the fourth round itself. He wasn't surprised that the triple experience bonus was gone. Correctly deducing the next trial wouldn't focus on slaying monsters. And with this insight, he chose the 4,000 gold. 4,000 gold, his decision clear and swift. With all rewards claimed, the angelic announcer declared that the final judgment would begin, starting from rank 1,225. A chilling panic spread among the players who had barely slain any monsters, but the angel's warning was stark. Those who failed to reach even that rank would be utterly erased. As she spoke, players with the lowest scores began to dematerialize, their forms fading from existence one by one, and just like that, the third round concluded, leaving only the victors standing. In the aftermath, a mere 225 survivors from the region managed to claw their way back to the real world. Erin's eyes flutter open, a wave of profound relief washing over her as she realizes she has conquered the 3 harrowing rounds. A smile graces her lips as she gets out of bed, her heart soaring with the thrill of unlocking the summoner class, eager to test her newfound power. With a whisper, she materializes a fairy into the real world, a tangible symbol of her excitement for having navigated the third round unscathed. Her survival, she knew, was owed entirely to her fairy's protective barrier and the valiant sacrifice of her bodyguard, who drew the enemy's fury away from her. Beyond mere survival, a stunning realization dawned upon her. She had secured a place among the top 3 contenders in the entire region. Her thoughts drift to him as she retrieves a gleaming item from her inventory, wondering if the formidable Black Reaper would even consider her offer. She holds the magic crystal, a prize from her victory. Meanwhile, in another room choked with rage, a lamp shatters against a wall, hurled by the furious hand of Aiden. He was seething, his hatred aimed squarely at the MC, as the devastating penalty he incurred had slashed all of his precious attributes in half. He couldn't accept this bitter reality. Had he known the price, he would never have commanded his allies to attack that fateful crystal. At that moment, the shrill ring of his phone cuts through his despair, a jarring intrusion that demands his attention. He glances at the screen, and a cold dread seizes him. It's his friend, Sean. Knowing he is cornered, he reluctantly answers the call. Instantly, Sean's voice explodes through the speaker, accusing him of madness and blaming him for the utter ruin they all now faced. "You used your command authority on your own friends," Sean roared. Desperate, Aiden scrambles to justify the unthinkable betrayal. He pleads that he had no other choice, insisting that the merciless Black Reaper would have ended him right there if he hadn't acted. But Sean's reply is laced with ice. He retorts that death would have been a more honorable path than turning on the very friends who trusted him. "Are you insane?" Aiden fires back, his voice cracking. "I was harmed too. As the region's representative, my own power was crippled. His attributes had been halved as well, but this desperate plea for sympathy only ignited Sean's fury. his voice rising to a furious crescendo. He brands Aiden a traitor, shattering the memory of their friendship and screaming that none of this would have happened if not for his selfish cowardice. With chilling finality, Sean delivers the final blow, declaring their bond irrevocably broken and that he is no longer to be considered a friend. He issues a chilling warning: the next time their paths cross, whether in this world or the next, it will be his last. With that, he severs the connection, leaving Leo to simmer in a rage fueled by his own sense of betrayal. In a desperate attempt to find an ally, he tries calling his other friends, only to be met with a cold, digital wall. His number has been blocked. He hurls the phone onto his bed in disgust. Overwhelmed by the suffocating isolation of his circumstances, he makes a bitter resolve. He will walk his path utterly alone. But his momentary peace is shattered by the haunting echo of his former friend's promise to end his life on sight. A tremor of fear gives way to a steely resolve. He would not merely survive, he would eliminate every last one of them. Later, Caleb stands before his superior, Director Vance, who expresses a mild, almost amused surprise that he managed to survive yet again. Director Vance concedes that the third trial was designed to be significantly more lethal, and probes to see if Caleb is truly unharmed, to which he affirms he is fine. Caleb downplays his success, suggesting that perhaps the monsters were weaker than anticipated, which is why they encountered so few issues. The director cuts to the chase, asking if he has acquired a class and what his current level is. Caleb reports that he is now level 11. He specifies that he has secured the night class, and adds that his companion, Elara, has also reached the same level. However, he clarifies that her path diverged from his as she awakened as a summoner. This revelation clearly intrigues Director Vance, who admits he had not anticipated the appearance of such a rare class. Caleb agrees that it seems uncommon, recounting his own surprise, and explaining that thanks to a fairy she was able to conjure, they could hunt undisturbed within a protective shield. The director falls silent, contemplating the strategic advantage. "This is excellent," Vance declares, instructing Caleb to maintain a close relationship with her, even suggesting he is free to pursue a romance if the opportunity arises. Caleb is visibly thrown by the personal nature of the command, but Director Vance simply reiterates that a relationship would be perfectly acceptable. He then reveals his cold logic: intimacy is the fastest way to discover a person's weaknesses. The manipulative nature of the order makes Caleb deeply uneasy. Seeing his subordinate so clearly flustered, the director lets out a rare, booming laugh, remarking that he's never seen him so conflicted. Sobering slightly, he warns him not to cause any unnecessary problems. Caleb acknowledges the command, his expression unreadable. Ashton chuckles, dismissing the idea of Aaron harboring such feelings for him, and steers the conversation back to the matter at hand. Reminding Silas that he mentioned an urgent report, Silas begins by extending a formal apology. He admits his failure to follow the explicit orders to assist the one known as the Black Reaper. Furthermore, he confesses his inability to deliver the message, which sparks a detailed discussion. Silas had a great deal to recount about the events that transpired in his region involving the mysterious Black Reaper. After hearing the full report, Ashton is captivated by this divine herald who appeared, as all evidence points to a being of unimaginable power. His subordinate soberly confirms that the Black Reaper's strength is indeed immense. He describes how the Reaper wielded astonishing abilities with a chilling certainty, as if the outcome was already decided. He concludes that, regrettably, this is a player who has no need for their assistance whatsoever. This revelation leaves the leader lost in thought. He had never conceived of a player possessing an attribute so far beyond all others. He feels a sense of inadequacy, knowing that even with his own Black Knight rune, he would be powerless against such a figure. However, this only fuels his growing desire to meet the Black Reaper in person. For now, he tables the discussion, shifting focus to ask about the results of their hunt for the player who gave Aaron trouble in the second round. Silas reveals that the person's name is Ethan. He notes, however, that even if this is his true name, there are countless people across the country who share it. Assuming he's around 20 years old and resides in Seoul, the number of possibilities narrows down to about 5 people. He also mentions that, even with detectives on the case, pinpointing this individual's location would take a minimum of 1 month. The leader laments the delay, realizing that if it truly takes that long, they won't find him before the 4th round begins. Julian refills his master's glass, agreeing that since they are not pressed for time, they can afford to proceed with patience. Ashton then asks how much gold he was able to acquire, and Silas replies, 10,000, leaving his superior utterly astonished. He was so close to his goal, yet the man insisted, mentioning a shop with a rare skill called analysis, and urged him to acquire it as soon as he amassed 20,000 gold. The bodyguard pledged to do so, but then a crucial memory surfaced, halting him in his tracks. He remembered he had to report that a new shareholder had acquired a massive number of shares in his boss's company. He clarified that he was referring to the newly established Celestial Demon Corporation, a detail that immediately captured Ian Locke's full attention. Intrigued, Ian inquired about the exact percentage of shares this mysterious individual had purchased. Samuel cautioned him to prepare himself for the answer. The figure was 31%. Ian couldn't mask his shock. A stake that large was practically a declaration of war. His mind raced, calculating that the Celestial Demon Consultation Company was valued at $900 billion. If someone truly purchased 31%, it meant they had invested a staggering $280 billion. He struggled to comprehend how a single person could wield such immense wealth. He scoured his memory, trying to place a name to this level of financial power. Could it be someone he knew? Or perhaps, one of his own brothers making a move? Haunted by this possibility, he reached for his phone, determined to uncover the truth. An investment of 31% was no mere financial play. It was a clear and direct bid to seize control of the company's management. With a sense of urgency, he instructed the department head to provide the shareholders' contact information. Elsewhere, our protagonist was calmly holding his phone. Fully aware of what was to come, he knew it was only a matter of time before they contacted him. The call had to come from their side. After all, he had to maintain the imposing dignity of a truly great investor. But just as he savored the moment, his brother burst through the door, a whirlwind of adolescent energy. The sudden intrusion made him jump, causing him to drop his phone directly onto his own head. His brother, oblivious, immediately demanded to know his level. Ryan, however, was confused, asking why on earth he would ask such a thing out of the blue. His brother explained that some arrogant kid was running his mouth. He was boasting that his own older brother possessed a ridiculously high level, effectively mocking them. This rival, he fumed, was already at level 11 and had even unlocked a class. The protagonist simply chuckled, telling his younger brother not to let it bother him. "Don't worry," he said with a cool confidence. "I'm at a much higher level than he is." Still filled with curiosity, his brother pressed. "So, what level are you?" He contemplates the dilemma of revealing the truth, realizing the various complications and potential fallout it could create. Ultimately, he opts for a strategic deception, claiming to be level 12, a statement that startles his brother, who knows that reaching such a level implies possessing a class. With eyes gleaming with excitement, his brother eagerly asks Liam what class he managed to obtain. However, Liam simply settles back, dismissing the question by stating it's a secret that, regrettably, he cannot divulge, not even to his own flesh and blood. Visibly frustrated by this secrecy, his brother accepts that he can't force the issue and leaves the room. The moment the door clicks shut, Liam's phone begins to ring, breaking the silence. He answers. Having already anticipated the call from Gideon Locke, the leader of the organization greets him warmly. The voice on the other end introduces himself as the CEO of the Celestial Demon Consultations Company, and Liam listens with a subtle, knowing smile. He understands the importance of playing the part of a naive newcomer. The more he appears to be an ordinary person, the simpler it will be to catch his target off guard. The leader, Gideon, tells Liam that he's heard about the massive fortune invested into the company. He acknowledges that this investment has made Liam the largest single shareholder in the entire enterprise. He proposed a face-to-face meeting, suggesting they discuss matters over a meal, and inquired if Friday of that week would be suitable. However, Raymond knew that Friday was a critical day, the one designated for acquiring the powerful Rune of Inner Thoughts. Consequently, he politely informed the businessman of his prior commitments and proposed they reschedule for Saturday, a suggestion that was readily accepted. With their lunch scheduled for Saturday, Raymond allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had fully anticipated this call. After all, Gideon Locke had established the Celestial Demon Consultations firm with the singular goal of winning his father's approval. Treating a major shareholder with anything less than the utmost respect was simply not an option for him. Raymond decided that before meeting the company's leader, he absolutely needed to secure the runes he sought, fully aware that there were several avenues to acquire such artifacts. They could be discovered in specific locations during each trial, or be granted as exclusive rewards for exceptional performance. Furthermore, they were sometimes obtained by vanquishing powerful bosses, and in the most extraordinary of circumstances, beyond the common monsters, there was a final secret he guarded, a truth that very few people, they could even manifest in the real world. With this in mind, he began to ascend the stairs of a particular building. He was conscious that the conditions for a rune's manifestation were incredibly intricate, but he knew that soon, Silas Hyun would appear in this very place. Raymond remained concealed, his mind focused on the man known as Silas Hyun, a name that served as both his in-game handle and his real identity. It was a name seared into his memory, belonging to the very criminal who had once abducted his younger brother. He could still vividly recall the man's voice from that dreadful day when his brother was held hostage. The chilling warning echoed in his mind. To keep his brother alive, a price had to be paid by revealing secret information that no one should know. "What in the world are you talking about?" Raymond had cried out, knowing it was impossible for him to possess such knowledge, only to be met with the criminal's mocking laughter. The laughter abruptly ceased, his tone turning deadly serious. "Do not lie to me," he commanded. "I am aware that you are a regressor." Raymond was paralyzed with shock. He could not fathom how this person could know his greatest secret. The kidnapper saw the look of utter disbelief on Raymond's face. He then explained, "I possess the rune of inner thoughts. I used it to probe your mind." And in that chilling instant, Raymond understood that the man knew his every thought. Ever since rescuing his brother, the memory of that incident had been a relentless shadow. His quest for vengeance against Liam had been a singular obsession since his 10th regression. This burning need had eroded his emotions, leaving behind only one cold purpose: to be the first to claim the rune of cognition. He had to secure it before that monster could. But as the thought formed, Liam appeared from the shadows. Draped over his shoulder was a young woman, whom he carelessly threw to the unforgiving ground, warning her that he would remove the gag from her mouth. He issued a single, chilling order. She was not to scream. Her pleas for mercy began almost immediately, but he cut her off, demanding she try a new approach, as tired talk of having a family or a future held no sway with him. Her words dissolved into desperate apologies, but the predator simply asked her what, exactly, she was apologizing for. Through a trembling voice, she finally managed to ask if this was all because she had dared to look at him the other day. Pledging her deepest regrets if that were the case, Liam coldly confirmed her fears. That was precisely the reason. He then twisted the knife, questioning why she would commit such an act if she was only going to regret it, confessing that her glance had left him feeling utterly wretched that day. The scene flashes back 2 days prior. The criminal prowled the city streets, contemplating which woman he would target next. He needed a vessel to forget his own problems. His predatory gaze soon fell upon a woman with an alluring figure. He noted her direction and began to follow, his shadow clinging to hers as she eventually turned down a desolate alley. He closed the distance in an instant, leaping before her and unleashing his ability, a blinding, incandescent glow that consumed her vision. The world went white, leaving the young woman terrified and helpless. In that void, the monster took what he wanted, committing an unspeakable act. After violating her, he simply walked away, abandoning her terrified and broken on the cold ground. As he reflected on his actions, he savored these moments of absolute control, where he could do as he pleased, a stark contrast to a life so boring he wouldn't have cared if it ended. That was, until he acquired the rune of luminescence, a power that allowed his very body to shine, blinding any opponent he chose. He found this new power to be endlessly amusing, a dark thought he savored until he entered a store and his eyes landed on the receptionist. He found himself instantly enchanted by her striking beauty. He ordered an iced Americano, and she replied that it would cost 5. Hyun slides the payment across the counter, his eyes lingering on the unfamiliar face. "You must be new," he remarks, his tone proprietary. "I'm in here all the time." He makes it clear he doesn't recognize her, and the woman offers a polite, if weary, apology, admitting she wasn't aware of his frequent visits. She explains that with the world undergoing such drastic changes recently, all of her part-time employees had simply walked out. "So now it's just me," she adds. "I'm the owner." Hyun's surprise is palpable. Her youthful appearance prompts him to ask her age. "I'm 32, she replies. The answer sends a thrill through him. At that age, she couldn't possibly be a player. Convinced she's an ordinary woman, he leans in confidently. "I like you. How about you give me your number?" The abrupt advance leaves her visibly confused. Her bewildered expression instantly sours his mood. "What's with that look?" he sneers, his voice turning ugly. "You find my face that repulsive?" Before the startled woman can even formulate a response, the moment is shattered by Shio-kyun's sudden intervention. He furiously slammed his fist on the table, demanding she return the money for the coffee. Shaking uncontrollably, she returned the money, which he cruelly snatched from her hand before storming out of the cafe. His mind twisted with the certainty that the woman was judging his appearance simply because of her own beauty. In that moment, he had already begun plotting his revenge. Now, back in the present, her apologies continued endlessly. He sneered, telling her that people shouldn't be judged by their looks, making it clear he found her pleas insincere. "Enough with the apologies," he snarled, and with that, the criminal violently shoved her to the unforgiving ground. Grabbing her arms, he growled that he needed to find out if she was just putting on an act to escape the situation. A bizarre, twisted look contorted his face as he leaned in, asking if she truly felt any remorse for her actions. Because if she did, he hissed, then she would have to pay a very dear price for her transgression. Just then, our hero emerged from the shadows, his voice cutting through the tension as he ordered the criminal to stay perfectly still. The man jolted in shock, unaware someone else was there, his mind racing, wondering if it was some kind of detective as he scrambled to his feet. "Who are you?" he demanded. But Ryuman, holding a menacing scythe, simply told him to shut his mouth, promising he would be screaming on the ground soon enough. Shokyun was utterly baffled, staring at the bizarre sight of a man wielding a massive scythe and hidden behind a stark white mask. In his confusion, he yelled out, asking if the man was insane, declaring that this was no place for foolish games. The masked hero responded by raising his scythe, calmly asking if it looked like a toy before whipping it through the air. The blade produced a sharp, lethal sound, causing the man to panic as he realized the weapon was terrifyingly real. "Are you a player?" he gasped, as Ryuman turned his gaze. He then told the terrified young woman to leave, but the criminal began to scream, ordering her not to move an inch. In a flash, our hero surged forward with incredible speed, landing a crippling blow directly to the man's groin. The brute immediately dropped to his knees in agony, and Ryuman coldly reminded him that he had been warned not to scream. He had promised the man would end up on the ground. He then repeated his instruction, urging the woman to get to safety. Assured that he would handle everything, she offered him her deepest thanks before quickly making her exit. Roman turned to the criminal, his voice low, announcing that with just the two of them left, the real games were set to begin. In response, Sean let out a furious scream. He roared that he would not only end Roman's life, but would also annihilate his entire family. A cold smile touched Roman's lips as he replied that this was a much better turn of events. After all, a simple and immediate victory would hold no real entertainment. Fueled by this rage, the thug charged, launching his attack. He slashed desperately with his dagger, but failed to land even a single blow, a reality that left him utterly confused. His opponent was dodging with almost insulting ease. Roman mocked him, finding it pathetic to see a so-called player wielding daggers fit for a goblin. With a single, surgical strike, he targeted a precise point on his arm. The blow severed the limb, sending the criminal into a spiral of despair. Roman casually asked if it hurt, only for his victim to spit back that the fun had not even truly started, claiming the loss of a hand was nothing. He had barely finished the sentence when ghostly after-images began to dance in his vision. Roman was now moving with blinding speed, his voice taunting Sean, calling him a frightened child. Sheer panic began to grip Sean. If this onslaught continued, his death was inevitable. He had to get out alive, whatever the cost. He knew, however, that to do so, he first needed to find a way to blind his relentless opponent. Believing he had finally found an opening, he unleashed his powerful light ability. He screamed for his foe to die, only to watch in horror as the blinding flash had no effect whatsoever. This left him in a state of desperation, unable to fathom what had gone wrong or why his power had failed. Roman, however, knew exactly why. He mused internally that Sean could try that ability as many times as he wished. Light could not penetrate the mantle of the Knight of Death. Having employed this defense from the start, he wasted no more time and surged forward with his scythe. With a vicious arc, he severed the thug's legs, sending him crashing to the ground, screaming in pure agony and disbelief. He shrieked, demanding to know why this was being done to him. Roman simply raised his scythe and brought it down on his leg once more. He asked if one truly needed a reason to exterminate a mere insect. As the relentless attack continued, he stated that he could not possibly let someone, the man who would one day become a great menace, Silas, erupts in fury, screaming that his attacker is a deranged psychopath. But after a relentless series of crushing blows, he is left utterly broken, sprawled helplessly on the unforgiving ground. His mind reels in confusion, staring at the scythe-wielding figure, desperately trying to comprehend the reason for this nightmare. As tears of agony stream down his face, he's consumed by the sheer intensity of the pain, wondering how much more he can endure. A dark thought enters his mind. Perhaps ending his own life is the only way to escape this relentless torment. He concludes that it is his only choice, but just as he resolves himself, the cold, sharp edge of the scythe presses against his throat. The sudden pause leaves him bewildered, and Ryland's voice cuts through the air, asking if he was truly trying to take the easy way out. He declares that such an escape will not be granted so easily, punctuating his words with another savage blow to Silas's back. Ryland vows to continue this brutal lesson until Silas does nothing but beg for the sweet release of a final, decisive end. After his body has been battered repeatedly, the pain becomes an all-consuming fire, a torment beyond imagination. He finally breaks, pleading for it to be over. And in the silence that follows, Ryland coldly asks if he is absolutely sure. Looking down at the terrified form on the ground, Rylan admits that from the bandit's perspective, this assault must seem like pure madness. He acknowledges that Silas has no reason to understand the attack, as this is their first encounter. But for him, things are different. Rylan reveals the chilling truth that this is not their first meeting, and that he already knows his name, a fact that terrifies the man. Gripped by fear, Silas desperately asks if this has anything to do with the young woman he encountered earlier. Rylan casually dismisses the idea, stating he has no idea who that girl is. The real crime is that Silas kidnapped his younger brother. He explains that Silas used his brother to unearth powerful secrets. Silas vehemently denies the accusation, screaming that he never did such a thing. Rylan clarifies that Silas hasn't done it yet, for it is an event in the future, a future that for Rylan is an unforgivable past. He explains that if he had not intervened at this exact moment, the young bandit would have eventually claimed the legendary rune. He names it the Rune of Inner Thoughts, a term that leaves the battered criminal completely baffled and terrified by its unknown power. Roman reveals a startling secret. A rune is embedded somewhere within him, and the key to acquiring it is to hear the voice of truth from another person. In essence, one must witness someone speak an undeniable truth from the depths of their heart. He confesses that if Ryuhan hadn't intervened, his plan was already in motion. He would have subjected that woman to unspeakable torment until she begged to be released, a desperate plea that would have unintentionally unlocked the Rune of Inner Thoughts, a power he would have then used to commit countless other atrocities. Leo could only remain silent, completely unaware of this dark mechanism, but Ryuhan assured him he had verified this information multiple times. He stated that even setting aside this revelation, he still considered Roman a worthless piece of filth, who deserved to perish for the heinous crimes he had just committed. The criminal then asks him to end it all, admitting he deserves to die, but he is left stunned when Ryuhan declares that he won't lift a finger to help him. Instead, he seizes the handle of the sickle and forces it into the man's mouth, warning that he is simply waiting for him to finish it himself. The man begins to tremble in utter despair, his body racked with unbearable pain. He reflects that Ryuhan must want the Rune of Inner Thoughts, which means he needs to make him utter something true from the very core of his being. Desperate, he cannot comprehend why Ryuhan is preventing him from speaking to finally claim the rune. At that moment, Ryuhan asks if he's trying to figure out why he isn't being allowed to speak. It's because the rune is already being tested. The man, weeping uncontrollably, is completely bewildered by this claim. Ryuhan clarifies that the rune has already been obtained, telling him to recall when he begged to be put out of his misery. In doing so, the rune had already reacted. A notification had appeared, confirming he had extracted the voice of truth from someone, thereby fulfilling a hidden condition. Because of this, he had discovered the Rune of True Thoughts of the Heart, a secret power, concealed in a predetermined location. The system stated that the rune had already been automatically recorded within his body. This was the Rune of True Thoughts of the Heart, an ability that reads the very thoughts of others. His unique ability grants him chilling insight into any visible target. By focusing, he can pierce through their facade and gaze directly into the darkness of their heart. This power has a range of 30 meters, and our hero coolly admits that he just finished putting it to the test on the criminal before him. It works perfectly, he confirms, his voice low and dangerous. But don't think for a second I'm going to grant you an easy exit. That wouldn't be fair to your victims, now would it? With his last ounce of strength, Seok-hyun can only silently curse the terrifying man who has become his judge. He waits until the final, faint pulse ceases, and only then does he stand, a profound sense of relief washing over him as justice is served. There are no witnesses. All that remains is the simple task of cleaning up, a matter easily handled by one of his more common skills. He activates Erase Traces, an ability designed to purge an area of all incriminating evidence, bodies, blood, and fingerprints alike. An ethereal green flame materializes, silently consuming every footprint and remnant of the confrontation, purifying the space. Every shred of proof that a life was just ended here is methodically erased. He muses to himself about the skill's undeniable effectiveness. A thorough cleaning is always deeply satisfying. With the situation resolved, he departs, his mind already shifting to his scheduled meeting with Kyung. The next day, a Saturday, finds our hero back in his apartment, carefully donning an impeccably tailored suit for the occasion. His brother watches, impressed by the transformation. "Well, look at you," he teases with a wide grin. "Heading out on a date?" He questions why it's being called a meeting, explaining he only wore a suit because he understood it was a formal business affair. His brother awkwardly asks if he's genuinely considering making investments at a time like this. He's seen him invest in stocks before, but now he's delving into far more unconventional parallel investments. He's deeply concerned that Roman might fail, fearing the devastating toll it would take on his psychological well-being. However, Roman is able to hear his brother's true thoughts, which flow directly from the heart. He's surprised to realize his brother is more terrified for his safety than he is about becoming poor again, and he tries to calm him. Our hero promises to explain the details later, urging him not to worry as he gets ready to leave. He firmly tells him to wait there, confirming that the other players have started making their moves, and the world outside has become dangerous. He affirms that he's witnessed it himself, seeing people corrupt their newfound abilities for malicious ends. He's even seen reports of criminals using their awakened powers to escape from high-security prisons. Roman confirms this grim reality, as even criminals were granted the opportunity to become players if they met the age requirement. He reflects on the terrifying equation. As the players grow stronger, the non-powered population becomes smaller. Soon, he knows, ordinary people will be hunted and treated as nothing more than chattel, a future that will arrive when the players reach their zenith. Because of this, he knows he must become as powerful as possible, while simultaneously continuing to build the reputation of the Black Reaper. After this grim reflection, he prepares to leave, but his brother stops him. "When will you tell me about this job?" he asks, immediately frustrated for forgetting that our hero had already called it a secret. But Roman promises to reveal everything soon, asking him to just stay put and eat something more satisfying than instant noodles for a change. With that settled, he heads toward the meeting place, already deducing where it would be, using the same logic as a home team's advantage. Much like a team having an edge on their home turf, the location Gideon Locke chose was one where he held all the cards. It's publicly known as the Ocean Group's hotel, but in reality, it's one of the many lavish hotels that Gideon Locke personally owns. Armed with classified knowledge, he approached the front desk, fully aware that to appear important, he first had to seem utterly unassuming. His objective was to project pure naivety. With this in mind, he adopted a look of gentle uncertainty, and explained he was there for a meeting. He feigned confusion about his destination, prompting the woman to ask if he was perhaps meeting with the president of Celestial Demon Consultations. She gestured toward a plush sofa, explaining that the president would arrive soon, and asking him to wait. He offered a polite thank you and took a seat. A quiet satisfaction settled over him. His performance as an insecure young man was proceeding flawlessly. He adopted a wide-eyed expression while admiring the opulent surroundings, and at that very moment, someone approached him from behind. A voice inquired if he was Mr. Roman. Our protagonist stood, his surprise mirrored on the face of Samuel Cole, who stood before him. Samuel asked if they hadn't crossed paths before at a different hotel, to which Roman replied that they had indeed. He specified that it was when they were distributing rice cakes after moving in, adding that he had also seen him with the actress, Erin. The bodyguard immediately bowed low, apologizing for his lack of courtesy on that day as a nervous sweat began to form on his brow. A cold chill ran through him as he looked at a boy who couldn't be a day over 20, yet was the largest shareholder in the company, investing $280 billion into the enterprise. Roman quickly sensed this deep-seated distrust, but understood it was a natural reaction to someone so young possessing such wealth. He continued his naive act, insisting it was no problem. He then added that he never expected the president of the company he invested in would be living right across from him. Samuel quickly urged him not to misunderstand, clarifying that he was not, in fact, the president of the company. Apologizing once more, he formally introduced himself, stating that he was only the head of the department. He assured him the president would arrive shortly and invited him inside to wait. With that, Samuel led the way. He escorted him to the meeting room, politely asking for a moment, before stepping aside and taking out his phone. He sent an urgent message to the president, informing them that he had just met the investor face-to-face. In the message, he confessed his disbelief that the boy could have acted alone, speculating that a more powerful figure must be involved. Because of that, he is advised to be cautious. Our protagonist feels a surge of satisfaction, as this was precisely the outcome he had anticipated. He knew Gyeong-lok would dispatch Sung-chul to analyze the investor's true identity, recognizing that it was highly improbable for the president to be merely late for such a pivotal meeting. At that very moment, he glances aside and sees that they have just arrived. Gyeong-lok steps forward and introduces himself, stating that he is the president of the Celestial Demon Consultations Company, as he extends his hand for a formal shake. He then invites them to be seated, casually mentioning that the head of the department will be joining the meeting. Ryuman immediately perceives the president's move to include Sung-chul, without any prior consultation, as a power play, an unspoken declaration that he intends to control the flow of their discussion. Gyeong-lok then smoothly suggests they eat, before delving into business matters. He explains that he has arranged for Korean cuisine to be prepared, expressing his hope that it will suit everyone's palate. The table is soon filled with an elaborate spread, and our hero begins to eat with genuine enthusiasm, declaring it delicious. This reaction pleases the president. The president reflects internally that his department head might be onto something. The young man before him seems far too immature to have single-handedly invested 280 billion. Even if he possessed the funds, he appeared to lack the necessary strategic mindset. For this reason, he becomes more convinced that someone powerful is manipulating events from behind the scenes, a thought that deepens his concern. Unsure of who sent the boy, he wonders if it could be one of his own relatives, feeling an urgent need to uncover the truth. He initiates his probing by remarking that he is surprised to discover the largest shareholder is a person of such youth, and then directly asks his age. Our protagonist replies that he is 20 years old, which visibly startles the president. The president, claiming to be 29, expresses his delight at meeting someone within the same decade, then pivots to his real question. How did he acquire so much money at his age? He presses further, asking if he might be the offspring of some influential family. Ryuman begins to mentally dissect the CEO's overtly direct questioning and decides to play into the charade. He calmly states that he is not, and that he was merely an ordinary student until very recently. The word recently piques Gyeonglok's curiosity, but our hero asks a question first. If he had chanced upon the article detailing the incredible story of someone winning the lottery 4 times in a row, Liu Yifei then reveals that he himself is that 4-time consecutive winner, leaving the president utterly stunned. The president, taken aback, admits he never imagined meeting this legendary figure and recalls from the article that the winner had secured 60 billion from the 4 games combined. Therefore, he asks how Liu Yifei managed to amass 280 billion. Liu Yifei calmly explains that he made a small investment in Bitcoin, a revelation that Gyeonglok finds absolutely incredible. He marvels that investing 60 billion into Bitcoin is not a risk just anyone would have the courage to take. Sang Chul remarks that Liu Yifei seems to have been blessed with extraordinary luck, recalling that the report mentioned the lottery winner saw the winning numbers within a dream, but at that moment, Liu Yifei cuts him off, declaring that this was no mere dream. Aiden turned to President Sterling, knowing there was only one path forward to secure his trust. To forge an unbreakable alliance, he began with a heavy admission, stating that he was about to reveal a secret he had never shared with another soul. He confided in them, revealing that he possessed the rune of future sight. Both men leaned in, listening with rapt attention as he explained its essence. In essence, he was a prophet, a man who could glimpse the threads of tomorrow. A stunned silence filled the room, hanging heavy in the air. Finally, the president broke the quiet, turning to Caleb, his voice laced with disbelief, questioning if he had truly heard the boy claim to see the future. Caleb was equally baffled, unable to comprehend the outlandish claim. Amidst this shared skepticism, President Sterling posed a direct question to Aiden. He demanded to know if this was the absolute truth, and if this supposed power was the real reason behind his staggering lottery winnings. Aiden confirmed without hesitation that the rune of future sight was indeed the source, not only for the lottery but also for his incredibly timely investment in Bitcoin. Every success, every calculated move that had multiplied his fortune, was a direct result of the incredible power granted by this rune. President Sterling, still wary, challenged him directly. "Prove it," he said. "If it's no trouble, predict something that will happen in the next few moments." Aiden paused, reflecting internally. Since he could read their thoughts, predicting their next move would be simple. However, to maintain his cover, he needed to be cautious. He realized he needed to invent a plausible restriction for this ability to avoid future complications. And so, he offered a careful, apologetic explanation. He explained that he couldn't simply summon visions at will. The rune, he claimed, only activated during unexpected, critical moments. There was no specific trigger he could control. President Sterling considered this. It made a certain kind of sense, as a rune that could see the future, without any restrictions, would be beyond belief. Just then, a sudden realization dawned on the president. He looked at Aiden, a new light in his eyes, and asked if the massive investment in his company was for the very reason he was now suspecting. Aiden affirmed it. "Yes," he said. "I saw a future where celestial demon consulting grows exponentially, dominating the market. That vision is precisely why I invested so heavily." He then dropped another bombshell, revealing its imminent public listing. It will be listed on the national exchange within 6 months, and with remarkable ease. A wave of pure elation washed over President Sterling as he absorbed this news. He began to imagine the possibilities if this prophecy held true, not only immense success, but finally, the chance to earn his own father's recognition. He would also secure the position of director, but he forces himself to remain composed, unable to react to information he couldn't even verify. However, Liu Yifei interjects that for the company to truly succeed, they must completely overhaul the business model immediately. At this, Song Chul leaps to his feet, slamming the table and shouting that it is an unreasonable demand, arguing it would be simpler to just change the company's name. Liu Yifei calmly agrees, stating that eventually, they will indeed have to change the name as a matter of course. He assures them he is not joking, especially since everyone present is a player. They should understand that revealing a rune to others is a monumental sacrifice. He clarifies that he took this into careful consideration before showing it to them, his major investors and future business partners. He explains that he did it to foster the company's growth, as they will be working together for a long time. Then, he poses a crucial question. Why on earth would he have invested 280 billion into this company, if not to ensure its ultimate success? Sang Chul desperately urges the president not to trust these words so readily, but Liu Yifei simply takes a steadying breath. Seeing their skepticism about his ability, the department head confesses that, honestly, he isn't trusting it either. Before turning to Sang Chul, he asks if they've considered the implications of Raymond moving into the penthouse apartment directly beneath their own. Evan insists it cannot be a mere coincidence, a statement that startles the bodyguard and prompts Mr. Lockhart to demand an explanation. He elaborates that approximately 2 months prior, Raymond strategically relocated to the residence just below Mr. Lockhart's penthouse. The president demands to know why this crucial information is only now coming to light, but the guard replies he never imagined its relevance until this very moment. The CEO falls into a contemplative silence. The timelines align perfectly with when he himself moved into the district where the company is located. A move, he realizes, that would have been utterly impossible without a power like the Future Vision rune. But he quickly dismisses the thought, reasoning that Raymond might simply know he is Evan's sponsor. A realization Evan sees is not enough to persuade him. Understanding that his current argument lacks the weight to convince them, Evan decides he must reveal the entire truth, revealing that the very hotel they occupy is owned by the president himself. He exposes Kane as the eldest son of the Osung Group, explaining that the Celestial Demon consulting firm is also his, a clandestine business venture created solely to earn his father's validation. In an instant, Samuel shoots to his feet, shouting, demanding to know who sent him, insisting it's impossible to possess such confidential information, unless he's intimately connected to the president, but Kane simply gestures for him to calm down. The department head offers a quick apology for his outburst. The president then clasps his fingers and begins his confession. He admits that everything stated is the truth, yet confirming its source is another challenge entirely. To say the discovery was made through future visions is difficult to accept, as Samuel noted. It's information that could be gleaned from his inner circle. He openly admits his own suspicions linger, aware that someone might be manipulating events from the shadows, attempting to lay a trap for him, which is why he cannot risk a complete pivot in his business strategy. He confesses a deep desire for this tale of future visions to be real, but he simply cannot afford to believe. He offers his gratitude for the investment in his company, but explains that to move forward with such a proposal, he would be required to hold a meeting with the other investors and convince them of the proposal's value. He then rises, apologizing for being unable to assist further with the matter, and announces his intention to depart. In that crucial moment, our protagonist asks him to wait, desperately wondering if there is truly no other way. He decides to make one last gambit. He will provide detailed information about the 4th round. Kane is taken aback by this, asking if he truly possesses intelligence about the next round. Our hero confirms it, stating he witnessed everything with his Future Vision rune. He even knows the tragedies that are destined to unfold, and asks if a revelation of that caliber would be sufficient proof of his ability. After this, he makes his exit, as Samuel apologizes to the president again for being overwhelmed by his emotions, his voice cracking under the pressure of the crucial meeting, but the CEO simply brushes it aside, telling him not to be concerned. Recalling that his colleague wished to add something, he gestures for him to speak. The department head then voices his deep-seated concerns. He confesses that he finds Raymond profoundly suspicious, arguing that if someone truly possessed such a powerful and unique rune, they would have every reason to keep it a closely guarded secret. He cannot fathom the young man's motive for helping them. The president, however, offers a simple explanation. He suggests that the young man's ambition is to grow alongside the company, calculating that as their enterprise flourishes, so too will his personal fortune. This only deepens the department head's skepticism, as he points out that Raymond already commands a staggering 280 billion, an almost unbelievable sum, more than enough to ensure he would never need to work another day in his life. Therefore, he admits the entire situation feels fraught with danger, as the very existence of such a rune remains an unsettling mystery. Lachlan Yang acknowledges his concerns, but urges him to view the situation from a more opportunistic perspective. He posits that if Raymond can genuinely foresee the future, then securing him as an ally is not just an option, it is an absolute necessity. He presses his colleague to imagine the overwhelming advantage of possessing advanced knowledge of every single round of the game. It would grant them the unparalleled ability to prepare for any contingency, ensuring the company's dominance. This strategy would also fuel their exponential growth in the process. The department head concedes the logic, but remains wary. He insists they have no proof whether the young man is a true prophet or a fraud, but the CEO declares that this is the least of their worries. The truth, he proclaims, will be revealed when the fourth round begins. Meanwhile, Raymond walks calmly down a city street, lost in thought. He reflects with cold certainty that after the fourth round unfolds, any doubt the two executives hold will be completely shattered. Although he had strategically withheld critical information, such as the secret missions or the paths to the highest ranks, he had shared one pivotal, chilling revelation during their meeting. The fourth round would not be about hunting monsters. In truth, a brutal massacre between the players themselves was set to take place, a grim turning point in the game. For that very reason, he had warned them not to lower their guard under any circumstances, confident that this single, dire clue would be enough. That performance should have been more than enough to solidify their belief in him as a prophet. He was certain that their entire attitude towards him would now transform, treating him with a newfound reverence. They would even feel compelled to protect him. After all, having a seer on your side is an unparalleled advantage. He mused that he had officially stepped into the role, though he questioned whether he should continue this charade. Regardless of the future, he knew one thing for certain: he needed to make contact with a very specific person. Elsewhere in the city, Julie was rushing, her hurried steps echoing on the pavement as she tried to outrun the clock. She skidded to a halt at a crosswalk, the red light mocking her urgency as she impatiently willed it to turn green. That's when her eyes fell on a car parked awkwardly in front of a store, and she wondered what kind of fool would park so carelessly. Just then, the car's window glided down, revealing Ryan inside. The light turned green, and she quickly darted across the street. As she drew closer, she asked if the car belonged to him. Ryan simply smiled and apologized for the terrible parking. He invited her in, offering her a ride. Flustered but intrigued, she accepted, and they sped off down the street. Julie couldn't help but admit her astonishment. It was her first time riding in such a luxurious vehicle. Ryan chuckled, admitting it was his first time as well, as the car had only just arrived. Naturally, she had to ask how much it cost. He replied nonchalantly that it was not terribly expensive, only about 900 million won. The girl stared back, utterly stupefied by the absurdity. She stammered, asking how he could justify such an extravagant purchase when that kind of money could buy several convenience stores. He acknowledged her surprise but gently reminded her of his recent lottery windfall, which certainly put things into perspective. Compared to his total winnings, the car's price was a mere drop in the bucket. Julie had to admit he had a point. Her classmate had won an unbelievable 60 billion won. In that moment, it felt as though they were living in two completely different worlds. A faint blush crept across her cheeks as she began to wonder if this could possibly be considered a date. But then, out of nowhere, Ryan said he had something to confess. Her face flushed a deep crimson, and with a voice trembling with anticipation, she listened. Julie asks what it is he wishes to confess, to which Evan calmly tells her not to be concerned. He assures her it is nothing of that nature, a comment that makes her flush with awkwardness. With her own romantic hopes momentarily dashed, she still presses him for his confession as they continue on their path. Evan finally admits that the story about his prophetic dreams of winning the lottery was nothing but a fabrication. He explains that the true origin of his knowledge was the rune of future sight, a power that, as its name implies, allows him to glimpse what is to come. This, he concludes, is the very reason he was granted the class of prophet, a revelation that leaves Julie genuinely surprised. She wonders aloud if his class is also a unique one, given its immense power, and sincerely thanks him for his honesty. Julie adds that she understands how incredibly difficult it must have been to share such a secret, even among friends. He simply replies that it felt like the only fair thing to do after she had revealed her own class. But for Julie, that is not enough. Insisting on true reciprocity, she declares her intent to share the secret of her own rune, beginning her explanation of the first trial. She reveals that she acquired the Rune of Protection, an ability that manifests a protective barrier around her for each person within a 10-meter radius. As an example, she explains that with 5 people nearby, she was able to generate 5 distinct layers of defense. She confesses a sense of relief, glad to finally share this weight with someone else. before questioning why he brought up the rune so suddenly. Ryuman explains that keeping it to himself was becoming a burden, especially since he doubted she would ever believe the truth he was about to reveal. His cryptic words linger in the air, leaving her completely bewildered by their implication. As they journey onward, Ryuman unveils the harrowing nature of the upcoming fourth round, and a chilling wave of panic washes over Julie. She desperately asks if his prediction is true, and he confirms her worst fears, his voice grave as he urges her to be vigilant. He warns her to remain on high alert around the other players, yet despite the grim forecast, a flicker of happiness ignites within her. The fact that he chose to confide in her first sends a blush to her cheeks, sparking a hopeful, almost embarrassing thought. Perhaps she held a special place in his heart. Later, in the solitude of his apartment, Ryuman finds his thoughts consumed by a single, startling revelation. Julie's feelings for him. He had seen it directly in her thoughts, a truth he admits he'd been completely oblivious to. Even as he'd wondered about her exceptional kindness toward him, he realizes this situation is actually advantageous. This unexpected turn of events would make securing a powerful ally far simpler. He smooths his sheets and lies down, deciding to rest, as the days blur into one another, until suddenly, it is April 30th, at 11:55 at night. Ryuman is immersed in the system interface, making his final, critical preparations for the trial ahead. His attention is fixed upon the Shadow of Darkness gloves, an epic rank item that increases strength by 5 and dexterity by 4. The glove's unique property renders his weapon translucent in the dark, an excellent attribute, he notes, and a perfect synergy with his Knight of Death skill. At that moment, a sharp knock breaks the silence. His brother enters, announcing that the time has come. He asks if Ryuman is confident he can conquer the fourth round as well, but Ryuman replies with uncertainty that he'll only know for sure once he's inside. His brother presses, confused, asking if it wasn't supposed to be easier for a prophet who knows exactly what will happen. But Ryuman explains the harsh reality of his gift. Knowing the future and actually surviving it are two vastly different challenges. Fear flashes in his brother's eyes as he pleads with Ryuman to survive no matter the cost. Ryuman simply tells him not to worry. As a deep slumber begins to pull him under, he remembers with grim finality that the fourth round is the one that changes everything. Where countless souls would ascend to greatness, every player was instantly teleported into the heart of the game world, including a young man named Leo. He was gripped by a cold tension, a feeling that intensified as he stared at the active penalty, permanently slashing all his attributes in half. A bitter thought surfaced. This was the price he was paying, a karmic debt for betraying Jackson. Jackson had been more than a leader, he was a role model, and now Leo, stripped of all authority, was left with nothing. Desperation gnawed at him, as he wondered how he could possibly survive the fourth round, his eyes darting around, paranoid that the other players might strike him down to seize the coveted title of regional representative, and to compound his misery, even his former allies now craved his downfall. Yet his immediate fear was eclipsed by something else. As he gazed forward, a profound confusion washed over him. This realm was utterly alien, unlike any stage he had ever witnessed before. His frantic search continued, his gaze sweeping the strange landscape until it finally locked onto the unmistakable figure of the Black Reaper. A surge of pure hatred boiled within him, for he knew this man was the architect of his ruin. Recalling how the MC had manipulated people to destroy the sacred relic, a chilling suspicion took root as he replayed the memory of how the MC had eliminated the Divine Herald so effortlessly, without a flicker of hesitation, as if he knew the outcome in advance. The anger was a physical force, so intense that he fantasized about crushing the man's skull right then and there. If only he possessed a fraction of his former strength, but he was cornered, rendered impotent by his crippling debuff, unable to act on his rage. Survival was now his only creed, and with that singular focus, he began to walk towards the very man he despised, the Black Reaper. As he drew near, he swallowed his pride and asked if the contract from the previous round, his servitude, in exchange for protection, was still in effect. Damien looked him over with cold disdain, declaring that he no longer had any need for a subordinate of his caliber. He elaborated with cruel precision that his supposed servant no longer wielded the authority to command anyone. It made no sense to keep a representative who held no true power, especially when considering that most other players had already ascended to a higher class while he had failed to even take that first step, labeling him utterly useless. Damien finished his tirade with a final, crushing verdict. "You are nothing more than a worthless, walking target." Leo stood frozen, paralyzed by the sheer terror of those words, especially as a walking target. He nervously scans his surroundings until our protagonist tells him to calm down. He explains that even though he's a target, it's more of a title than a death sentence, as very few people are likely hunting him. The young man, Ethan, asks for reassurance that he's safe, and our protagonist confirms that by now, everyone should understand the situation. He points out that Ethan should have grasped the reality of the regional representative's position, a realization the others have surely come to as well. He clarifies that holding this position is not the great advantage it seems to be. As players acquire their own classes, the number of individuals a regional representative can actually control dwindles significantly. Consequently, the risk far outweighs the reward. Ethan reflects on this, realizing the cold logic in the protagonist's words. At that very moment, Erin and her bodyguard approach, causing a flustered expression to appear on Ethan's face. Puzzled by their lingering presence, she cautiously approaches, offering a polite greeting to the infamous Black Reaper, Silas. Ryan echoes the sentiment, inquiring if Silas remembers them. The protagonist affirms with a simple yes before pointedly asking what they want. The bodyguard explains that Silas saved him from the large man standing beside them, and they wish to express their gratitude properly. The young man in question, Leo, bristles at the backhanded comment, demanding to know who they are, calling a tough guy. But he is cut short by Silas, who raises a hand to silence him, stating that a simple thank you was more than enough. He makes it clear they no longer need to follow him. Ryan replies that he understands the sentiment. However, he clarifies that the president of their company insisted they convey their thanks in a more tangible manner. He begins to speak of the president, but Ryan abruptly interrupts, telling him to stop right there. A visibly embarrassed Erin steps in to diffuse the tension, asking Silas to please accept the crystal she holds out. She offers it as a token of gratitude. His eyes widen in surprise, as he identifies it as a low-grade purple magic crystal. The gesture is entirely unexpected. She starts to explain that she lacks the proper words to thank him. Before she can finish, he swiftly takes the crystal, assuring her that he appreciates the gesture and is grateful for the gift. He accepts it readily, thinking to himself that there's simply no reason to turn down such a valuable and useful item. He knows he'll find a good use for it later. Erin, meanwhile, anxiously wonders if the Black Reaper genuinely liked her gift. She frets that she might have angered him by offering such a seemingly worthless stone. Silas, sensing her thoughts, knows he's right. His suspicion is confirmed. The girl has absolutely no idea just how valuable the item in her hands truly was. Otherwise, she never would have given it away. At that exact moment, a stray thought surfaces in Leo's mind that he found something similar. As he focuses on the memory, he recalls the specific item, a black and gold strength stone. Ryan can scarcely believe it. Reading Leo's thoughts, he understands the significance of a black and gold strength stone. It's a legendary artifact, an item with an astronomically low probability of being acquired from a defeated foe. It is an item far more elusive than a magic crystal, something that would have been impossible to obtain through deliberate effort. He is intrigued that Ethan possesses such a valuable artifact, though he's unsure whether to consider it a stroke of incredible fortune or a terrible curse. Just then, Erin asks our protagonist if he would like a protective barrier, revealing that she has finally obtained the summoner class. This new power allows her to summon a fairy capable of erecting a shield. He thanks her for the generous offer but politely refuses. He simply doesn't believe he needs one, which leaves her slightly embarrassed as she says she understands. She bids him farewell, explaining they need to prepare for the next round. As she leaves, he notices Ethan trying to slip away and calls for him to wait. He issues a stern warning, cautioning Ethan that his current course of action will lead to deep regret, reminding him of his status. The title of a walking target. This statement leaves Ethan completely bewildered. He was just told that no one would pursue him. Our protagonist corrects him, stating he said not many would come for him, not that no one would. The perks of being a regional representative haven't simply vanished. He elaborates that a great number of players still haven't reached level 10. This means a vast pool of potential targets still exists for the command authority, and he urges Ethan to truly think about the implications. Does he genuinely believe that out of thousands of players, not a single one will try to claim his power? A new dread washes over Ethan as he asks. When questioned about his intentions, Roman replies that he will lend his aid, ensuring the man is no longer such an easy target. But he clarifies that his assistance isn't free. He desires a reward comparable to the one he saw Erin receive. He specifies that if the man possesses such an item, he will accept it as payment. A wave of relief washes over the gangster, who happens to have exactly what he needs. Without hesitation, he accesses his system interface and presents a remarkable stone, the Stone of Black Gold Strength, a dark and resilient gem. Its surface is perfectly smooth, radiating a subtle gleam. Roman accepts the precious stone and secures it within his inventory. He then probes, asking if the man has any other valuable items to offer, but receives a negative reply. The gangster explains that he has given his only treasure and pleads for Roman not to take his equipment. Our hero simply tells him not to worry. He reveals it was merely a joke, assuring the man he wouldn't have taken anything more, even if it had been offered. And with a final, solemn vow to ensure his protection, he turns and walks away. At that exact moment, a chilling laugh echoes as the angel materializes, openly amused that so many humans had managed to survive. She casually comments that the total number of survivors has dropped dramatically, a statement that sparks intrigue among the remaining players. They wonder aloud if more brutal battles had erupted in the real world, a possibility that our protagonist no longer finds surprising. He knows it's nearly impossible for players to avoid being dragged into conflict. Stepping forward, Olivia asks a fateful question. She inquires if she should announce the mission for the 4th round, and as if on cue, a system screen materializes before every player. The objective is stark and horrifying. They are to eliminate each other within 3 hours. The total number of participants across all regions is a staggering 181,000. In their current region, there are 1,042 survivors, and only 521 will be allowed to complete the round. A wave of indignant murmurs sweeps through the crowd, while Olivia scoffs at the human reaction. She remarks how easily they become confused. As the mission is simple, she makes it terrifyingly clear that they must eliminate the players standing right beside them. To elaborate, she explains that the sole purpose of this round is to drastically reduce the number of active players. This time, they are being forced to hunt each other, a grim departure from previous rounds where monsters did the culling. A new dread settles over the crowd. Without monsters, there would be no way for them to level up and grow stronger. A man calls out to the angel, desperately asking if eliminating just one person is enough, since the numbers dictate that only half will survive. She demands silence, coyly stating that the specifics are a secret. After all, if she revealed everything up front, it would spoil all the fun. Observing this cruel theater, our protagonist finds it darkly amusing, recognizing that the angel is merely a puppet following orders from higher powers. In essence, the angels are just mouthpieces delivering information about the game. The true puppet master operates from the shadows. The very fact that she is deliberately hiding the rules is confirmation that she is acting on a direct order from this unseen master. The angel then clarifies that the mission doesn't end with a single kill. The unchangeable truth is that only 521 can survive. Though the method for determining the final ranking remains a secret, she decides to offer them a single, cryptic hint, warning that the announcer clarifies that first place will not be awarded to the first person who takes a life, then coldly commands them to begin at once. With no further explanation offered, she declares that they can now begin eliminating one another as the round officially commences. A daunting 3 hours are placed on the clock, leaving the stunned players paralyzed by the chilling new reality. They are lost, forced to confront the twisted directive to hunt their peers, barely comprehending the sadistic nature of this trial. In stark contrast, Evan Young's face lights up with glee. A mission to eliminate others is a welcome command, as he was already eager to dispose of certain individuals. Roman observes from a distance, having anticipated that a man with such a volatile nature would be the first to embrace the call for bloodshed. He watches with a grim fascination, confident that the others would be frozen by hesitation, unwilling to be the first to act. His concentration is shattered when a presence materializes silently behind him, and a jolt of alarm courses through him as he turns to face the Black Reaper. He hadn't sensed his approach in the slightest. Before he can react, the Reaper asks if something is amiss, his voice calm and detached. The Reaper states that, as promised, he is here to ensure Roman does not become a target. To fulfill that vow, he summons his ominous scythe. The weapon gleams in his hand for a brief moment before he unleashes a devastating attack past Roman, felling Evan Young with a single, surgically precise strike. In the aftermath of the execution, a system notification materializes in his vision, announcing that a secret mission has been unlocked. The task had been to eliminate the region's designated representative within the time limit, with the prize being a low-ranked magic item. He had earned a magic crystal ticket. With the objective met, the mission was marked complete, and the reward was instantly transferred to him. The low-ranked magic crystal ticket would randomly grant between 1 to 5 low-ranked magic crystals, and was only valid for the current round. A flicker of satisfaction crosses his features. He had not only secured the resource he desired, but had also dealt with Evan Young to claim this hidden prize, though that was hardly his only motive. Suddenly, a wave of panic ripples through the crowd as shouts erupt that someone has already fallen. All eyes turn to the Black Reaper, identifying him as the one responsible. He gazes back at them, knowing full well they were the same people trying to kill the representative. Until the last round, they were predators in waiting. Now, they masquerade as virtuous saints, their voices rising in manufactured horror and judgment. They condemn his swift justice, screaming that he cannot take a life as he pleases, their accusations branding him as nothing more than a murderer. He muses that the title isn't so bad. After all, he had already dispatched Seok-hyun. Moreover, he knows with cold certainty that many more will fall by his hand before the 20th round concludes, for he never ends a life without just cause. This is especially true in the current round, where the very objective is mutual annihilation. Yet, despite this grim reality, they dare to condemn him. Whispers ripple through the crowd, thoughts of using this moment to eliminate the Black Reaper, or at the very least, shatter his reputation. A smirk plays on his lips as he perceives their thoughts, finding the entire spectacle a grand farce. His laughter ignites their fury, and they demand to know if he finds their lives a joke. Just then, a system notification materializes in the air. It announces that the Black Reaper has been appointed as the new representative for their region. A wave of intimidation washes over the players. Not only was he already the strongest among them, but now he wielded the authority of a representative. The irony amuses him, and he wonders at their sudden fear. He taunts them, asking if they failed to level up and now cower at the thought of his command authority. Suddenly, a sharp cry cuts through the tension, directing everyone's gaze to the name floating above our protagonist's head. The color of his title, Black Reaper, has shifted. Confusion spreads like wildfire. Why has this change occurred, and only for him? Ryomen internally reflects that they must be seeing his name in a brilliant, bloody red, knowing that in rounds like these, a player's name is marked. It turns crimson the moment they take a life, the hue deepening with every soul they extinguish. He understands its purpose perfectly, a simple, brutal way to distinguish the executioners from the uninitiated. This system subtly encourages players to hunt those already marked, to target the predators instead of the prey. It offers a flimsy justification, a way to soothe their conscience. But one undeniable truth remains. The one who slays a slayer becomes a slayer themselves. This grim logic becomes the very catalyst that will soon drive them to turn on one another. He can sense their hesitation now, a fragile dam holding back a flood of violence. He knows it's only a matter of time before it breaks. Armed with this insight, he addresses the trembling crowd, his voice dripping with scorn, asking if they intend to simply continue wasting time. The other players command him to stand down, branding him a murderer, but he fires back with a sharp retort. He scoffs at their accusations, pointing out that he was far from the only one targeting the regional representative. And where, he asks, are the people who were hunting James in the last round? With a voice laced with cold gravity, he reminds them, "It is kill or be killed." That is the fundamental law of survival here. He challenges them to abandon their hypocrisy and confront the grim reality of their situation, to imagine if they were in his position, with a blade pointed at their throats, their own lives hanging in the balance, they too would be forced to act. He issues a stark warning. Now is not the time for idle hesitation. If his actions truly bother them so deeply, they are free to hold a debate just as they did with the last vote. He says this, knowing full well that they won't remain passive for long, but by the time they act, it will be far too late for everyone. He reflects that without his intervention, they would only squander precious time, and the final number of survivors might not even reach 521. Even if it means turning on one another, it's crucial to push them forward and complete the mission. One player speaks up, agreeing they must do something, echoing the Black Reaper's sentiment. Standing around is pointless, she declares. Another man immediately questions her, asking if she has a real plan or is just offering empty words. Would be resolved. She detested his sarcastic tone, especially since she was attempting to have a rational discussion. He then proposes a duel between them, but another player cries out, questioning the justice in them, turning on one another. To him, treating this life-or-death situation like a one-on-one video game duel was pure madness. The scarred man's temper flares at the suggestion, and a heated argument erupts between them from across the distance. Aaron, a silent observer until now, turns to his bodyguard, his voice low. What do we do? Do we really have to eliminate them? As the Black Reaper had foretold, his bodyguard confirms the grim necessity, stating that if they hesitate, they will be the ones who are killed. He then coldly advises her to sever any emotional attachment to the lives of these strangers. He admits to completely agreeing with the protagonist's logic, and, for that reason, insists she make the final call, fully aware that the extermination of players is far from a pleasant task. She notes that he speaks with a chilling familiarity, as if from experience, a notion he quickly dismisses. He responds that he is merely theorizing about their grim predicament and, regarding the matter of who they should kill, deflects the heavy decision. He suggests leaving it to a grim sense of humor to decide, while the other players continue to argue over potential targets, suggesting the exterminators. Their reasoning was simple. They only needed to concentrate their efforts on those whose names were marked in red. At this, a player asks in disbelief if she is implying they should try to kill the Black Reaper, while another voice immediately calls the idea insane. How could they possibly defeat a player who had already reached level 30? Alfred remarks that he is certain that even if they all attacked at once, they would still be powerless against him. At that moment, a terrified player urgently pleads with them to be silent. Their fear was that the Black Reaper would overhear them, but the protagonist, already bored, could hear every word with his rune of thoughts. Sunghan's voice cuts through the tension. "What are you all saying? Life is precious. We shouldn't kill anyone, not even the assassins." Another player quickly supports him, adding that to kill someone would make them an assassin in turn, a hypocrite. A fed-up man finally snaps, asking what they propose instead, reminding them of the cruel reality of this round. For one to live, another must die. Because of this undeniable fact, he begged them to stop the futile bickering and agree to finish off the designated criminals. Just then, a woman steps forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "And how, exactly, do you propose we identify these criminals? Will you interrogate every single person here for their records?" she challenged. A nearby man erupts in fury, demanding to know who she thought she was, declaring that her opinion was never requested. Stung by the insult, her eyes flashed with anger. "I'll make you regret those words," she seethed. He scoffed, telling her to try her luck. An onlooker, amused by the scene, urged them to dispense with the theatrics and just get on with the fight, a comment that instantly united the two adversaries in rage. They both agreed that instigators were the lowest form of trash, and with a shared understanding, they unsheathed their blades. Their patience for one another had finally run out. Ronan, observing from a safe distance, found the entire display tedious. It was all posturing and empty threats, leading to nothing of consequence. He wasn't concerned, however, knowing that the true finalization of this stage was imminent. At that very moment, another man pleaded for calm, insisting they all needed to be realistic, but his words were cut short by a gasp as he stared in disbelief. Evan, the young man who had been struck down and left for dead, was now slowly sitting up, letting out a deep yawn. The protagonist instantly understood. This was the hidden rule of the round. After a duration of 10 minutes, fallen players would be revived. Evan found it peculiar that every eye in the clearing was fixed on him, their expressions not of mere curiosity, but of sheer horror, as if they were witnessing a ghost. As he shakily rose to his feet, he admitted the sensation was deeply unsettling. He remembered a brief, chilling conversation with the Black Reaper, but everything after that was a complete blank. A man nearby let out a scream. He had just witnessed a man return from the grave, a terrifying display of the system's incomprehensible power. A chilling thought began to ripple through the crowd. What if, in this round, everyone was immortal? If that were true, then there would be no consequences for initiating an all-out slaughter. The players' grips tightened on their weapons, a new, brutal strategy forming in their minds. If this was the case, victory was assured. But then, a young woman pushed her way through, pleading for everyone to stop. She warned them that they had no proof, no certainty that every single person would truly be brought back after death. She struck from the shadows, the assailant cold-heartedly urging her to perish swiftly for the sake of their grim experiment, leaving the other players utterly stunned. Their gazes are fixed upon her still form on the ground, a chilling worry spreading through the crowd as the moments tick by, and she shows no signs of returning to life. Murmurs of doubt ripple through the group, questioning if more time is needed, until one man speaks up, reminding them of what they had witnessed before. He recalls how the others had revived after a 10-minute interval, so with a fragile consensus, they resolve to wait for 10 agonizing minutes. Just as hope begins to fade, a soft luminescence emanates from her body on the ground, and the gruesome wounds begin to mend themselves, knitting flesh back together. She stirs, rising to her feet and stretching as if from a deep sleep. But the blissful ignorance shatters in an instant, replaced by a raw, piercing scream of horrified realization. Her voice trembles with rage, demanding to know the identity of the coward who struck her from behind, but the words have barely left her lips when her attacker coolly approaches her once more. He callously commands her to die again, but before he can land the final blow, another player intervenes, striking him down in a swift, unexpected counterattack. The newcomer issues a chilling warning to the crowd. Unleashing a full-blown massacre is of no consequence, as everyone will simply return to life 10 minutes later anyway. A wave of horror washes over the players at this grim proclamation, while from a distance, our protagonist observes, musing that even with the promise of resurrection in this round, the innate revulsion towards the act of taking a life still lingers. Yet he keenly notes that the other players are becoming something else entirely. They are being consumed by the volatile atmosphere, their true, darker natures surfacing as the dam of civility breaks and a frenzy of slaughter erupts among them. They fight with reckless abandon, utterly indifferent to potential penalties, driven by the twisted realization that this bloodshed is the very objective of the round. A brief conversation between two men devolves instantly into violence, one pleading with the other to stop resisting and simply accept his fate as he lunges forward. And thus, the full-scale massacre ignites, with Roman observing impassively from afar as hundreds of players tear into each other with the ferocity of rabid animals. The arena has transformed into a veritable battlefield. Materializing his scythe into his hand, he briefly contemplates his involvement before silently closing the distance on a nearby group of combatants. In that instant, with a single, elegant sweep of his blade, he ends the lives of several players simultaneously, a swift and precise reaping. His deadly display concludes, and two opportunistic players spot what they believe is a fatal error. The Black Reaper has turned his back to them. They quickly signal to a third ally, seeing a golden opportunity to eliminate the infamous player. The trio surges forward, convinced this is their moment to strike, but their hopes are extinguished before they can even make a move. Learning a harsh lesson. There is simply no way to catch the master of this game off guard. His presence detection alerts him to a chilling sight. One player, far from fighting for survival, is utterly relishing the unfolding massacre. He realizes with grim certainty that this fourth round was, without a doubt, the perfect hunting ground for such an individual. Because this player possesses the absorption rune, this bloody scenario transforms from a deathmatch into a grand, power-enhancing banquet. Judging by the deep, malevolent tint of the player's aura, he surmises that at least 10 other participants have already fallen by his hand. A maniacal laugh escapes the player's lips, a sound of pure disbelief at the surge of power coursing through him. To gain so much strength simply by eliminating other players. He marvels at the true, terrifying potential of his rune. He admits to himself that he was completely unaware that attributes could be enhanced by eliminating fellow humans, not just mindless beasts. Fueled by this revelation, a renewed excitement grips him, and he dives back into the fray, roaring for them all to perish as the clock ticks down. With every fallen foe, his absorption rune flared brighter, its power surging through him in exhilarating waves as he rapidly gained strength. He correctly deduced this power was tied to the level of his opponents, and a thrilling, dangerous thought crossed his mind: to take down the Black Reaper. He could only imagine the immense power he would gain from defeating a warrior of such a high caliber. However, a cold dose of reality swiftly quelled his ambition. He had no idea what fate awaited him if he recklessly challenged someone so formidable. Thus, he resolved to feast on the weaker combatants swarming around him, and with a decisive thought, he plunged his axe into an unsuspecting player's back. The player crumpled to the ground, and the Black Dragon found himself imagining that vanquishing these players was a cathartic experience. It was a stress relief he desperately needed, feeling he hadn't been able to hunt properly because of the younger warriors. Brimming with excitement, he admitted this battlefield felt as if it were made exclusively for him. Lost in thought, another player tried to launch a sneak attack from behind, but the blade whistled past harmlessly. The hulking warrior's senses were far too sharp. With one devastating swing, he eliminated another opponent, feeling a fresh jolt of power as his absorption rune grew stronger. The progress bar on his rune pulsed as players kept respawning one after another, fueling the Black Dragon's manic glee. He knew an opportunity this perfect might never come again, so he continued his ruthless campaign, pausing only for a brief moment. He took a quick mental tally of his eliminations, driven by the burning desire to secure his place at the very top. At that moment, his blood ran cold as a figure approached through the chaos. He realized it was the Black Reaper, who immediately summoned his Death Knight, causing an unnatural twilight to descend upon the battlefield, casting everything into deep shadow. This left Brock and the other players utterly bewildered, their eyes darting around as they tried to understand the chilling phenomenon. The Black Dragon stared, perplexed, as the Reaper's imposing scythe suddenly became ethereal and almost transparent. A primal instinct screamed at him to be cautious, but it was a useless warning. With a single, fluid motion, Aiden spun his spectral weapon. The brute's head was sent flying from his shoulders. In that fleeting, final moment of airborne consciousness, he understood. He realized with stark clarity that he should have been more careful. He should have avoided the Black Reaper at all costs, as the battle raged on without him. It was a maelstrom of violence, with everyone turning on each other, driven by a simple, brutal mission: secure as many eliminations as possible. Amidst the chaos, Leo remained an observer, his eyes scanning the battlefield until he witnessed the impossible: a woman rising to her feet moments after a fatal blow. He watched in disbelief as she fully recovered, resurrected after a mere 10 minutes. A spark of realization ignited within him. This was his golden opportunity to turn the tables on the betrayers. Fueled by this thought, he began to weave through the frenzied crowd, his eyes searching for a familiar face. And then, he saw him. Ethan, his former friend, stood with his bow drawn, his arrow aimed at an unsuspecting victim. To avoid alerting his target, Leo adopted a casual, unassuming posture as he closed the distance between them. Then, in a blur of motion, he landed a devastating punch, roaring for him to perish as the impact sent his friend reeling backward. Ethan crumpled to the ground, trembling in agony. Leo loomed over him, yanking him up by the collar of his shirt. With a terrifying glint in his eyes, he snarled, reminding him of the threatening promise he'd made over the phone. He dared him to make good on that threat, and then unleashed a merciless barrage of blows upon his former friend. After rendering him unconscious, Leo finally released his grip, his cold voice demanding to know the whereabouts of the other traitors. Elsewhere, Arya watched the carnage unfold, wondering if this brutal scene was a glimpse into the very depths of hell. It was a relentless battlefield, fueled by pure, unadulterated malice, where lives were extinguished without a second thought. The spectacle horrified her, and noticing her distress, her loyal bodyguard quietly asked if she was growing weary. She reassured him that her body was fine, but admitted that the strain on her mind was far greater than any physical exhaustion. Caleb understood her plight completely, yet he knew this state of mind was a dangerous liability. If she couldn't push through this ordeal, he would be unable to face the president, a failure he could not bear. He had barely a moment to dwell on this before a sudden movement snapped him to attention. Someone had approached them with deadly stealth. The attacker wasted no time, seizing Arya by the hair and moving in for the final blow. But her guardian was faster. He intercepted the assault, disarming the assailant with a single, fluid strike before raising his own blade and plunging it deep into their chest. Leaving the man trembling on his knees, Cole asks if she's okay, but Arya, shaking uncontrollably, can only stare. Her gaze is fixed on her blood-covered dagger. The overwhelming reality of it all causes her to collapse and vomit as Cole watches. He notes that she is handling the situation surprisingly well, having done everything that was asked of her. She rises to her feet once more and asks, "How much longer must I endure this?" He replies that there is likely another hour to go. Arya grows anxious at the thought. Merely witnessing the massacre is agonizing, and she confesses that she cannot understand why the other participants seem to revel in it. Her bodyguard starts to feel a pang of concern, seeing her fragility, like a delicate flower caught in the middle of a war. He asks if she would like to rest, pointing out that, if he's not mistaken, she has already completed the task about 50 times before turning away. That number alone should be more than enough to secure the rank she needs for approval. She thanks him for his consideration, but in his mind, Cole is the one who is grateful. He thanks her back silently, since her quiet compliance means he won't be burdened with carrying anyone else. With that, he returns to the fray, now free to concentrate on his own score. The clock ticks down to the final 10 minutes of the round, and Ryder continues to carve a path through his victims. He feels the time running short, recognizing the familiar exhaustion that this round always brings. A man tries a desperate attack from behind, but Ryder immediately whirls around, his reflexes like lightning. He finishes the poor player with a single, fluid motion, his mind utterly focused on one objective, securing every first-place reward from every region. Fueled by this ambition, he dashes across the arena. He analyzes his situation, knowing he must do whatever it takes to reach the 20th round in peak physical condition. Unsure of the final boss's strength, he targets 2 more players, dispatching the first with chilling ease. He then turns to his next quarry, projecting a terrifying aura that leaves the man completely petrified with fear. Liam effortlessly sidesteps the player, continuing his sprint and leaving the bewildered attacker to ponder his own survival. He is fully aware that there is no point in felling an opponent he has already defeated once. In this 4th trial, the rankings are not calculated based on the sheer volume of takedowns. This is because claiming victory over players you have previously eliminated yields no further points. A diverse range of opponents is necessary, as even defeating someone 50 times will only count as a single elimination. With this strategy in mind, he glances aside and spots Victor relentlessly targeting the same unfortunate souls. He watches the brute deliver a flurry of heavy blows to subdue his opponents with his bare hands and has to admit something. He can hardly believe that Victor is systematically eliminating his 3 former comrades in the same corner of the arena. Liam doubts Victor will survive the round, just as the brute notices his quarry has respawned. He immediately lunges again, barking at his target to get back on his feet faster. This way, he can rack up more hits. With only 1 minute remaining, Liam finally makes his move in this final stretch. Needing to gather as many unique points as possible, He locks eyes with one opponent, instantly recognizing a fresh kill. He moves to the next, a boy shielding a girl, securing another point, until he spots a blonde-haired combatant and hesitates. Unsure if he has already eliminated him, Liam decides not to take any chances and launches his attack. He secures another point with a single, decisive blow, just as a golden aura begins to emanate from his body. This same ethereal glow envelops every other player, and at that very moment, Serafina appears before them. She casually asks if they enjoyed the brutal affair, a question that immediately sparks their collective rage. There is nothing enjoyable about being forced to do this to their own peers. The angel feigns surprise at the blood-soaked ground, but offers praise. She commends everyone for their excellent work and informs them that she will now retrieve them. They will all be brought back to observe the final rankings. Witnessing this charade, Liam finds the entire situation darkly amusing. The angel creates the grand illusion that she is saving them all, when in truth, the real architect of this miracle is something else entirely. The system itself is responsible. In an instant, the bodies of those who had lost limbs are made whole once more. In the same miraculous fashion, those who were decisively eliminated are brought back to life, and Sean is among the resurrected. The very moment consciousness returns, he erupts in a torrent of curses, his voice raw with hatred as he screams Vincent's name, calling him a treacherous backstabber. He swears a dark oath to end Vincent, no matter the cost, then laughs mockingly at his former allies, calling them fools, until the angel's voice thunders. She commands silence, her tone glacial, warning that she will make the heads of those who keep talking pop like balloons. An immediate, profound silence descends upon the room, much to her satisfaction, as she is eager to reveal the results of the round. However, before displaying the scores, she declares that she will first unveil what the round's secret mission truly was. With a theatrical snap of her fingers, a system window materializes, revealing the hidden objective: to eliminate the official representative of their region. This had to be accomplished within the designated time frame, and the reward was a ticket for a lowest-class magical crystal. A collective gasp fills the air as they realize the secret mission was specifically to target and eliminate their own region's representative. She then informs the stunned crowd that the sole individual who completed this mission was none other than the Black Reaper, leaving everyone in a state of utter disbelief. They recalled that the Reaper had indeed eliminated the region's representative the very moment the round began. The Black Dragon was consumed by fury. He had been completely unaware of this secret objective. He fumed, imagining that if he had known, he would have seized that mission for himself from the very start. Meanwhile, young Mason was paralyzed with fear, wondering if he had truly been outmaneuvered by the Black Reaper. He was completely oblivious, and it was only then he noticed in his system that the temporary ability, Command Authority, had vanished, which made the Reaper's chilling words echo in his mind. "I will help you avoid being targeted," he had said. And only now did the horrifying truth of that promise become clear. The Reaper's action had guaranteed Mason's safety by seizing the title of representative, and therefore the target, for himself. After this, a wicked grin spread across Olivia's face as she asked if they were curious to see the final rankings. She revealed to everyone that their ranks were determined by the number of unique players they had each eliminated. This meant that felling the same opponent repeatedly would only ever count as a single, solitary kill. The players looked at each other in shock, asking if this meant it was never about simply killing as many as possible. The angel scoffed, asking if they were truly so naive to believe the challenge would be that simple. And with a contemptuous snap of her fingers, she materialized the interregional leaderboard for all to see. The Black Reaper held first place with 722 kills, while a group known as the Mindless Brutes was second with 521. In third place stood the Celestial Demon, having secured 433 unique eliminations. Within their own regional rankings, the Black Reaper was also first, followed by Little Bird with 211 kills, and Samuel in third with 209. Even the angel's composure wavered with astonishment as she saw the Black Reaper's name dominating the top spot again. The other contestants stared in disbelief, unable to process how one person had killed over 700 people. In a game with only 1,000 players, this meant the Black Reaper had single-handedly culled 70% of the field, a number that even Olivia admitted was shocking. He declares that such an effort deserves a fitting reward, and right on cue, the system congratulates him for securing first place in his region. But the accolades don't stop there. It also announces his victory as the top contender across all regions combined. His prize for dominating his own region is a medium-class rare armor ticket. And for achieving the #1 rank overall, the reward is a special selection chest, prompting a rare smile. He can finally acquire some decent armor. The gear he's been using has long outlived its usefulness, and the system presents him with a choice between 3 powerful, rare armors. The first option is the radiant shining bronze armor, the second is the lethal bloody assassin's outfit, and the third is the enigmatic cloak of darkness. Without a moment's hesitation, his decision is made. He selects the second option, the bloody assassin's outfit, a prized rare rank item. Its stats are formidable, boosting his defense by 60, dexterity by 4, and increasing both his attack and movement speed by a crucial 5%. Now, he turns to the special reward, where his options are a 50% attribute increase during the 5th round, a purse of 5,000 gold, or vital information about the 5th round itself. He is keenly aware that the 5th round's secret mission offers incredible rewards but is also notoriously difficult to complete. Understanding the immense challenge ahead, he makes a strategic choice, selecting the 50% attribute buff to empower himself for the coming trial. With the rewards distributed, the angelic being addresses the crowd, her voice echoing as she asks if everyone is ready, reminding them that the minimum requirement for survival was rank 521. A chilling warning follows. The immediate elimination of all who failed to meet that threshold is about to commence. Panic erupts as those who fell short of the rank begin to fade from existence, their desperate pleas for mercy dissolving into thin air. To his horror, our hero watches as even his own friends begin to disappear, a consequence of spending more time defeated than conscious during the trials. A cold fear grips him, quickly replaced by a surge of adrenaline and relief as he realizes he survived by the narrowest of margins. Having also spent far too long on the brink of elimination, Erin is paralyzed with terror, her fate hanging precariously in the balance. She braces for the worst, unsure if she will be the next to vanish, while Caleb remains remarkably calm beside her. He is confident they both secured enough eliminations to pass. Nearby, Ethan takes a deep, steadying breath and fixes his gaze forward. His eyes land on the new announcement. There are now 521 survivors, and the next round will begin on May 1st. Back in the real world, within the walls of the Imperial Hotel, Song-chul burst into the room at a full sprint, shouting his president's name. Yang Lok, roused from a deep slumber, grumbled as his eyes fluttered open, demanding to know what was going on. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. "I don't recall summoning you." The sector chief offered a hurried apology. "Sir, you weren't responding," Sang-chul explained, his voice laced with genuine concern. "I was worried something terrible had happened." Yang Lok let out a dry laugh. "Something happened to me? And after I placed third in the round?" He scoffed dismissively. Embarrassed, Sang-chul conceded the point. "You're right, of course," he admitted, his tone shifting. "It's just, round 4 was unbelievably brutal." The president nodded grimly. "That's precisely the reason I went. Straight to bed. I was utterly exhausted." He revealed his own kill count was a staggering 433. "But even that pales," he continued, knowing the true number was far higher since repeat kills went uncounted. "What kind of monster is that Reaper? Is he even human?" The sector chief admitted he couldn't say for sure, speculating he might be someone from the special forces. Someone with that level of extreme confidence and skill, living right here in South Korea. The thought clearly intrigued Yang Lok. He couldn't conceal his admiration for the Reaper's prowess, recognizing that he needed that person's cooperation at all costs. To advance more easily, he knew that at some point, he would have to ask the Prophet about this Black Reaper. He needed to know if that shadowy figure appeared in any of the predictions. Sang-chul then remarked how incredible it was that round 4 unfolded exactly as the Prophet had foretold. He confessed his initial skepticism, a doubt that vanished after witnessing it firsthand during their meeting. Ryuman had announced that the upcoming round wouldn't be about killing monsters. Instead, he warned, a massacre would take place. Yang Lok was so taken aback by the grim proclamation that he had to ask if it was true. Ryuman had simply confirmed that it was. He described a brutal scenario where players would be forced to kill other players, urging them never to let their guard down for a moment. With everything that had happened, the sector chief posed the critical question. "So, what should we do? Will we work with the Prophet?" After the absolute confirmation of his powers in round 4, the president grabbed his clothes and replied with certainty, "It's obvious. We work together." This was especially true now that Ryuman had acquired 31% of the company, effectively placing its entire future in the young man's hands. A subordinate, filled with doubt, questioned if he was certain, asking if he truly intended to overhaul their entire operation. Yang Lok confirmed that he had no other choice, as the boy's plan was not just a suggestion, it was a directive from the Prophet himself. The Prophet had not only revealed the path to the company's growth, but had also issued a stark warning. They needed someone with that specific ability by their side. For this very reason, He urged them never to underestimate the young man, simply because of his age. He commanded that even if Ryuman's actions were to displease the sector chief, they must continue to cooperate with him without question. This was the only way they could fully reap the immense benefits promised by the prophet's visions, both inside and outside the game. Humbled, Sangchul bowed low, vowing to show Ryuman the proper respect from that moment forward. From that moment forward, the president issued a direct order, demanding immediate action. He commanded his subordinate to contact Ryuman at once. They were to organize a grand celebration to honor their survival. He added that the actress, Erin, was also to be invited, a perplexing request that left the sector chief momentarily confused. The president simply commented that the presence of a celebrity at their party could prove to be strategically useful. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Ryuman was waiting beside a storefront, raising his hand in acknowledgement. Julie approached him, her voice laced with concern, asking if everything was all right and why he had called her to eat so early. He told her not to worry, explaining calmly that it was merely a small celebration for making it through alive. As they continued their journey in the car, she took the quiet moment to express her heartfelt thanks. She confessed that she had only been able to brace herself for round 4 entirely because of his guidance. When Ryuman asked if she ever thought it was a lie, Julie found the idea impossible, stating he had no reason to deceive her. She revealed that if she hadn't known, she would have to eliminate at least 30 different people. Her own life would have been forfeit. It almost certainly would have spelled her end. A conclusion that Ryuman, in his thoughts, quietly disagreed with. After all, he knew that even if he had told Julie nothing, she would have survived thanks to the power of the protection rune, and her will to live was far more formidable than it appeared. They soon arrived at a luxurious restaurant and were promptly served. She offered a quiet thanks for the food, but as Ryuman began to eat, he noticed her visible apprehension. Julie questioned if she could truly be there after taking so many lives, confessing she only came because of Ryuman's personal invitation. He paused, asking why she wasn't eating, fully aware that if she continued to dwell on these thoughts, the guilt would overwhelm her. Seeing her consumed by this burden, he asked if her hesitation stemmed from the people she was forced to eliminate. He urged her not to blame herself for what happened, reminding her that she only did what was necessary for her own survival. Anyone else in her position would understand, he assured her. Nevertheless, she couldn't accept that it was all so simple, until Ryuman challenges her perspective, making it clear that this reckless path will only continue. He then poses a chilling question. What would her family do if, one night, she simply didn't wake up? He reminds her that everyone has a family waiting. This thought strikes Julie with the force of a physical blow, the image of her father's grief suddenly all too real. She concedes that he's right, admitting she hadn't truly grasped the devastating impact her loss would have on her family. Humbled by this, she expresses her deep gratitude for all the support he has given her. Ryuman casually dismisses her thanks, urging her to just enjoy the meal. As time passes, a comfortable quiet settles between them. He is pleasantly surprised when she begins calling him by his first name, a first for her, and takes it as a sign that her mood has lifted. Seizing the moment, he decides to reveal the true purpose of their meeting, stating he called her for one singular reason. He was there to disclose what he knew about the 5th round, a statement that immediately sends a jolt of panic through Julie. "You really have information?" she asks, her voice trembling. He solemnly confirms that he does. He explains that this next trial will be the most difficult one yet, because the very regions themselves are going to unite. She doesn't quite grasp the magnitude of his words, so he clarifies the terrifying reality for her. All the currently separated areas will be forced together, collapsing into a single, massive arena. A spark of hope ignites in her as she asks if that means they could finally meet inside the game. He confirms this is exactly the case, but he quickly refocuses her attention on the immense danger of the 5th round, even as his own mind raced, trying to find a way to meet her. The challenge would be to connect with her while keeping his true identity a secret. He begins, stressing again that the 5th round will be exceptionally brutal. He delivers the grim warning that this time, it was entirely possible that neither of them would escape with their lives. But, he says, offering a sliver of hope, there is a method we can use. Intrigued, Julie asks him to explain. His answer is stunning. She needs to seek out the Black Reaper and request his assistance. A cold sweat immediately forms on her brow. She could never have anticipated such a suggestion, stammering in disbelief. The Black Reaper? The person he's referring to is the champion who dominated every region in every single round, and if this means she must approach such a formidable individual for aid. Raymond clarifies his previous statement. It's not about receiving help from the Black Reaper, he explains, but rather about cooperating with him. They need to forge a temporary alliance with this player, a pact that could be their key to surviving the round. Julie grasps the logic, but she questions why someone already at level 30 would partner with a player who isn't even halfway there. Raymond notes that her buffing ability is quite remarkable, something even the Black Reaper would find invaluable. Nevertheless, she admits her worries linger. She's not convinced the Black Reaper would accept her as an ally for what she sees as a minor buff, a sentiment Raymond finds amusing. Her power is far from minor, he tells her, urging her not to worry, as he knows with absolute certainty the Black Reaper will agree to work with them. This alliance wouldn't be just for the 5th round, but for others as well. Her face lights up with hope as she asks if he's truly serious. She thanks him for sharing such critical information and then asks him to extend his hand. With that, she begins to channel her power, thinking it's the very least she can do in return for his guidance. Raymond feels the surge of power, pleased to receive the buff, and offers her his sincere gratitude. This leaves the girl nearly faint with embarrassment, an unfortunate side effect of her own blessing skill. All of his attributes were just amplified by 50%. He immediately unleashes his insects once more to secure the kill, and, as his tally reached 100, his attributes surged by another 100% thanks to the rune's effect. Raymond sits down, having pushed his attributes to their absolute peak through every means available. When he checks his status window, he is stunned. The numbers are astronomically high, including his luck stat. It had skyrocketed to 84, far higher than he ever imagined. Because of this, he moves to claim his first-place reward. He knows he'll be able to obtain something exceptionally useful, the minor rank magic crystal ticket. It randomly grants between 1 to 5 minor rank magic crystals. Raymond imagines that if he were an ordinary person, he might have prayed for a good outcome, but he knew it was unnecessary. His luck was already at its absolute peak. His mind drifted back to the very beginning, to the chilling announcement that warned of the trials to come. A new game would begin on the first day of each month, for a total of 20 harrowing rounds. Our hero admitted to himself that while he couldn't be certain, a god had to be pulling the strings. Only a divine power could drag 1.8 billion souls into such a deadly game. It could only be the work of a cruel deity, toying with humanity for its own amusement. And he made a solemn vow. If he ever survived the 20th round and earned the wish that followed, he knew exactly what he would do. He would utterly annihilate this twisted, playful god. With that cold resolve solidifying in his heart, he activated his random selection token. A system notification chimed, congratulating him for obtaining 5 minor-level magic crystals. The haul consisted of 2 crimson magic crystals, a single yellow one, and one of vibrant green, along with 1 purple magic crystal, all of a minor grade. He was stunned. He had received 5, the absolute maximum possible from a single token. A grim smile touched his lips. Perhaps, he mused, his burning hatred for the god behind this cruel game was finally paying off. Wasting no time, he began the process of combination, starting by placing the 2 crimson crystals onto the synthesis grid, thus forming a low-level red magic crystal. He gazes at the item he has just forged. He was aware that combining 2 crystals of the same color and rank would paradoxically create a lower-ranked crystal. He repeated the process with the purple crystal, utilizing the one he had received from Aaron. This fusion also resulted in a low-level purple magic crystal. Ruman then proceeded to the next crucial step, combining them. He began with his items, starting with his hood, which he masterfully infused with the red crystal. The fusion amplified his damage by a solid 2%. He then did the same with his gloves, gaining 2 additional attribute points. He also secured 2 more points in luck by combining a brilliant yellow crystal with his resistance ring. Finally, the combination of his boots with the verdant green crystal granted him 2 precious points in dexterity. He carefully set the dark blue crystal into the armor, securing a precious 1% damage reduction. A profound sense of satisfaction washed over him. Affirming the value of using all the magic crystals, he considered that gaining such a powerful buff in exchange for a little information was undoubtedly a worthwhile trade. With all his affairs in order, he announced it was time to prepare for the meeting with Julian Locke. Inside their apartment, a baffled Ethan turned to his brother, asking if he had truly invested such a staggering amount of money into the company of the Ocean Group's successor. Ryan confirmed that he had, adding that he was even invited to a party to celebrate their future collaboration, which left Ethan utterly petrified. The thought of mingling with such high society figures was overwhelming, and he nervously questioned if they even belonged in a place like that. Ryan calmly reassured him, explaining that the invitation was extended to the whole family, so there was nothing to fear. He then urged his brother to get ready, as their transport was waiting. When they opened the door, Ethan was stunned by what he saw. Aaron's personal bodyguard was there to greet them. Ryan simply explained that the person beside him was his brother. Charles Sang immediately offered his apologies for the late introduction, Clarifying his position as the head of the department, he apologized once more for any previous discourtesy, explaining that the party was intended as a formal apology. He then invited them to proceed to the hotel, where a limousine awaited. Shortly after, they arrived at the grand location. They stepped into the massive building, and were soon greeted by Julian Locke, who confessed that he was immensely relieved to see Ryan had survived the fourth round. Ryan sincerely echoed the sentiment. He then introduced the young man beside him as his brother, and Julian Locke offered a cordial welcome. He introduced himself as the president of the Celestial Demon Consultation Company. Ethan, completely awestruck by the presence of so many powerful people, shook his hand, oblivious that he had offered his left hand. Instead of his right, Julian Locke took the opportunity to inquire if Ethan was also a player, but he replies that he is not, as he is only 14 years old. He remarks that the boy is incredibly fortunate to have escaped the deadly game for an entire year. He confesses his envy, a sentiment that causes our hero to laugh internally. He knows the president must secretly relish the brutal eliminations within the games. With the introductions now complete, Yang Locke gestures for everyone to proceed to the Grand Hall, explaining that although it is a simple affair, the party was prepared with the utmost care and quality. Upon their arrival, an entire banquet was already spread across the table. It featured a stunning variety of food, with chefs standing by in case anyone had a special request. One guest cannot conceal his astonishment, as the scene before him is far too surreal. The president invites them all to enjoy the feast. He humbly states that although it is not much, he believes they will find it more than satisfactory. One can only think this must be some kind of elaborate joke. There is no way this could be considered not much. Yang Locke smiles, and graciously invites them to eat freely, but his words are cut short as the grand hall doors swing open. Our hero turns, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of the newcomer. It is Aaron standing in the doorway. The president rises from his seat. He expresses his relief, stating he is glad she has finally made it. The young woman apologizes for her tardiness, explaining she had to attend another actor's funeral. He reassures her, explaining that the company's most significant investor has arrived, prompting her to turn around. She begins her introduction, stating her name, Aaron, and her profession as an actress, but her words catch in her throat as a wave of recognition washes over her. She asks if they are the very same two young men who had offered rice cakes when they moved in, a question to which they simply affirm. A flicker of delight crosses her face at the thought of her neighbors being the major investors, yet a seed of doubt immediately sprouts in her mind. It seemed impossible. They were far too young to command such immense wealth. She couldn't help but wonder if this was some elaborate, cruel prank orchestrated by the president. At the same time, Roman's brother could barely contain his excitement. As a devoted fan, he stammered, asking if it was truly the actress Aaron standing before them. It was only in that moment that Roman realized the depth of his brother's ignorance regarding Aaron's ties to Yang Locke's corporate empire. This explained his brother's genuine shock at her sudden appearance, though Roman conceded it was an understandable reaction. After all, the actress possessed a striking beauty that would captivate anyone. Seizing the opportunity, Roman decided to feign a similar interest as a social courtesy. The president, observing this, felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him. He knew that while Roman was young and gifted with foresight, he was, above all, a man, and such attractions were only natural. This affirmed the president's belief that inviting Aaron had been a stroke of genius. He then gestured for everyone to take their seats. As the lavish banquet commenced, Roman's brother couldn't help but exclaim that the exquisite meat practically dissolved on his tongue. Seizing the moment, Yang Locke turned to Roman, inquiring if the meal was to his liking, as he had personally instructed the chefs to exercise the utmost care in its preparation.